Hello, everybody, and welcome to Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary. Thank you for joining me again. Um, got a couple of things I want to talk about today. Quite interesting, kind of linking together, you know, um, kind of money, but not money, if that makes sense. You know how it is. Firstly, though, just did a show with Gordon of the Peaceful Rebellion. And so, if you want to see me with Gordon talking about ETs, ghost stories, and all sorts in between, then please go on. There's a link below on my description. Please go into the link and watch that. I won't be putting it up till at least Monday. At least Monday. So it's a fun show, and it'd be lovely to give Gordon a bit of love and a few more views. He deserves a bit more. He does some really interesting, thought-provoking stuff in a very nice, soft way, which is I like that. I like that, and he's a very switched-on chap. So if you want to see me doing something else, talking about all sorts of interesting stuff, please go there. Thank you very much. Now, today I'm going to talk about the fragile system. Now, we have this perception that the monetary system, the governmental system, and even the judiciary, the police, I mean, anything authoritarian, all the authority type things that we have this perception that they're strong and solid and built on foundations that can't be rocked. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It really could not be. Okay. So that perception is actually a perception that they have created, an illusion, because we know that the emperor has no clothes, and yet the emperor still struts around as if he does. And so our own perception of what we've been told, again, it's kind of breaking the layers of the onion of the control mechanism. This is just another layer of the MK Ultra system that we've been brought up with. But fundamentally, the systems are fragile, and they are really, really fragile. How can I put this? It's only by our compliance and our interaction with the system that the system is allowed to be. So this kind of goes to the where our energy flows, where our attention goes, sorry, our energy flows. So I've got up a bit earlier than normal. It's red hot today. It's been red hot in England, and everyone's melting. And so if I don't get this done now, it'll be too hot. I mean, yesterday I planned to do this show, and it got so hot, and I was just like, "Oh, I can't be bothered. Oh my God, it's just like, oh." So I'm up earlier than normal, and my brain hasn't quite clicked in yet. So there we go. Yeah, so the non-compliance of it's the perception of where our energy goes. We create what we believe to be so. Okay, so the fact that we believe, belie, believe in the lie, believe it, we believe it, we create it, believe it, and so we think that the government is a strong organization that can't fall, it's impervious to anything, and yet they only rule by consent. I'll say that again. They only rule by our consent, by the mandate we give them. Now, they can put whatever draconian rules in that they wish to. That's just fear on their part because they realize that they're losing. It's a bit like holding sand in your hand. Eventually, the sand will all disappear and you've got nothing left in your hands, apart from a few bits and pieces. So you've got a big pile of sand in your hand. And over time, that sand will go through your fingers and there's nothing you can do about it. And this is where we are now with the governments and everything else that's going on. It's we're seeing the collapse in real time and the panic. And as they realize they're losing power, they will get more and more authoritarian. And we're seeing this certainly in the United Kingdom, for sure. Because, as I was saying, we give them the power that they then exert back on us. So as soon as we stop giving them our power, as soon as we stop giving them our attention, as soon as we stop engaging in them, non-compliance is very, very key. They have no mandate to do anything anymore. And I think we're getting to this stage. We're starting to get to this stage very, very quickly in the UK. But it's the fragility of that system that people don't quite understand. You know, when regimes have been toppled in the past, and I know most of the regimes toppled in the past have been funded by the CIA or an alphabet agency letter that has done this for nefarious reasons and on the nefarious terms on the people. The people have always been, but what the masses hadn't realized in their hypnosis and their comatose state is if they all went out and said no, it would be the end of it. It'd be the end. And just by saying no is enough. It really is. You know, you have no mandate. We're not going to work today. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. Actually, we're just going to stay at home, chill out, and what are you going to do about it? We're not going to pay the taxes, and we're not going to do this. And so the non-compliance of the system would bring it down within days. Now, something I saw recently, which I thought was really, really interesting, was Coca-Cola. Now, Coca-Cola is a global company, massive, absolutely massive. If everybody stopped buying Coca-Cola for just 2 days, the company would collapse. So, 2 days of non-compliance or non-purchasing or not giving or taking the poison of the consumption of that. Again, this is for entertainment purposes, everybody. This is just a story. Remember that. Please see the disclaimer in the bottom of my show. Um, the company would collapse in 2 days. How long do you think it would be before a government would do the same or a financial institution would do the same? Very interesting. Just be my, this is just the thing to be, oh yeah, the fragility of the system. The emperor has no clothes currently. They're there to be seen and they're showing themselves for what they truly are. Now we can see this. And obviously the show that we're seeing currently is for the sleepers to try and wake them up and give them a nudge and a jolt and a prod. And I think they're going to get it one way or another very, very soon. But people have this conceptual nature how strong authority is. Well, when you take the thugs out of the picture, the government has nothing. And by thugs, I mean the henchmen that wear uniforms and call themselves police. Police need to, and I mean need to start really looking in the mirror at the moment. And then they're going to have to make a decision sooner or later, the police are. They're going to have to decide which side of the history they really want to be on. Because when you maintain a society using force and fear, you no longer have a working society. And we're currently in that situation in the UK. The draconian rules and lack of free speech. And remember, this is all for entertainment purposes only, and this is a story, and nothing that I'm saying is actually meant to be real or reality. This is just a story, and again, please see the disclaimer. Who thought you'd have to say that sort of stuff when you're t telling the story on YouTube about something that's not real? So the the government or the government of the mind, the people who govern the mind in their fallacy, use systems to control us, and they are systems to control us. So fundamentally, if you do something wrong in the eyes of the government, which remember is a corporation, it's a dead entity, it's a body of nothing, there's no standing, it's not a real person, it's a group or collective. When you upset this collective, a bit like a hive mind, it's a bit like the Borg collective, isn't it? You know, they've just plugged in and say, yes, master, we will do that, master. So when the master flicks the switch and the government jumps into action and starts doing things, the way they enforce it is very clever. They get the thugs in black to come round, get their batons out, arrest a few people, crack a few people over the skull, and create some fear in the general public. And one or two individuals may even be taken to court and given lengthy sentences, which the mouthpieces at the time will report on and thrust down into everyone's face, including the truthers community's faces, to increase the fear. And it's the subconscious control mechanism that they're shoving down our throats. So all these wonderful truthers who have celebrity type status, who share all this kind of stuff, are often not sharing it because they're concerned for you, but because their masters have told them to do so, because they're part of the same mechanism. It's just how it is. It's how it works. Of course, they will give you enough truth and they will jump on board on certain things, but fundamentally, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about, the fragility of their system, and so they've had to put their spider web of influence into everything. But fundamentally, if you're controlling something by force and fear, you don't have anything. It's fragile. And as soon as people say no, and it doesn't have to be a lot of people either, I forget what the percentage is that can overthrow a country, but I think it's less than 10% of the population could actually overthrow a country. Just saying. I'm sure I've sort of seen, I mean, obviously, this is from my memory and what I've seen. I'm sure one of you beautiful Femi will be able to say, oh, yeah, it's X amount of percentage. Because a lot of these countries, the alphabet agencies have changed the course of, they would have done that with very few people. But a mainstream press that was fully paid for, given the impression of something completely different happening. So interesting stuff. So just want to be mindful of the fragility of the system and how it's smoke and mirrors. You know, it's the Wizard of Oz with the old man behind the curtain, and that's all it is. That's all it is, and there's no fear with it. It's a joke. It's a joke. The only power they wield is that of the baton of force, and that's not power. That's oppression. So another thing I want to talk about really was money. Very interesting. Couple of things really. Not necessarily tied up. Sorry, it's hay fever. I do apologise. Um, let's have a glass. Morning cup of tea. I still haven't had a cup of tea yet. And for those of you who understand the English consumption of tea and its importance, it's far more important than coffee, I can assure you. I'm sure others would disagree with that, but I don't drink coffee, but I do drink tea. Um, there's a song about that, I think. Anyway, going on to the money side of things. I understand currently that the London Metal Exchange or London Bullion Exchange, the vault for the Bank of England, fundamentally, that holds most of the gold in the world. I did hear or see somewhere, and I can't remember where I saw it, so it could be wrong, but I don't think it is, that you can only access your gold, your physical metals now, by appointment only. So instead of just being able to whack an email off or demand your physical assets be delivered to you, you now have to apply for a meeting or an invitation to be able to then ask permission. So you've got ask permission to ask the permission if you can have your solid metals back, your gold or silver. Ask, but this relates to gold, I believe. And they will give you an appointment time in which they will then talk to you. And then I think it's about 6 or 8 weeks before you can actually get your gold in physical form. And I'm not sure how long you'd have to wait for the appointment in the first place. Well, what that means is they've defaulted because it should be turnaround time a maximum of 2 weeks. So you should be able to purchase your gold or collect the gold that you already have in storage and get it out. Now, we could be talking about countries here or big organizations with vast amounts of gold, but the principle is the principle. UK bullion is in default. The Bank of England is in default and are breaking their terms of condition because they don't have any physical gold anymore. Literally no gold. Because they've oversold and pretended they've had far more gold than they actually really do. I mean, we have this crazy thing. I was watching, I think it was Rafi the other day, Rafi Farmer, and he was looking at the interest rate on loaning silver, this is silver, into banks. So a bullion bank, knowing that another bullion bank is going to be audited or they need to provide or have proof that they actually have some metal that they've sold the bits of paper for. Because remember that fundamentally the bullion markets are all paper. They never expected people to want physical delivery of what they were selling them. So what do we mean by this? Well, they've got one ounce of something, gold or silver makes no difference, and they've got one physical piece of that. And what they've done, they thought, well, as only about 1% of the population of whoever buys these notes ever comes in physical delivery, what we'll do is we'll sell a couple of 300 of these. And I'm sure by the time we've sold these, that even if you sell 200, you know, two people might want that physical ounce. But by the time you've done that, then you've earned all that money. You can buy a bit of extra gold in, just a couple of three more, and then you've covered that, and you've kind of got that still. But you've created 200 ounces from 1 ounce. Well, the problem is now the 200 pieces of paper are all now saying we want our gold now. They don't have it. They haven't got it. They've got some, but not a lot. So what they're now doing with auditing, and that this is the game that they've been playing for a long time, is they will lend banks silver, physical, and they charge them interest on the fact that they're physically holding that piece of silver. So I think currently the silver interest rate to hold a piece of silver is 3.18%. So for every ounce of silver a bank holds, they have to pay another bank 3.18% to physically hold it, even though they have sold bits of paper saying that they own this silver or gold, makes no difference, to people. And so when the person wants that piece of gold or silver back, they can't get it because it doesn't exist. Like I said, the emperor has no clothes, and it's in the financial system as well. So I hope I made sense on that. The banks have one piece of gold. They will sell 200 bits of paper for every one piece of gold they have. In America, I think they're limited to three sales. So they can got one piece of gold and they can sell it three times. That's why the American gold all got shipped over to the United Kingdom or Europe, Switzerland, where it can be sold multiple times. Now, if you've had a bank that's been audited and the Bank of International Settlements fundamentally, I would imagine, would be the auditors, or it would be some company connected to, which are a complete waste of time. They walk into the vault and there's all this lovely shiny gold. Oh, yes, 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 you've got that. That's fine. As they walk out of the vault, people follow them in, load it back on into a van, you know, and it's transported to the next bank for the following week. When they do the audit the following week, and the bloke walks in and goes, "Oh, yes, 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 I see you've got the gold." But those two banks that are sharing the same piece of gold and they're charging each other interest on swapping the gold between each other because they don't really own it either. They have sold, each of those have sold bits of paper to the public and to organisations claiming they owned the gold when it never was theirs in the first place. It's a Ponzi scheme, it's a pyramid scheme. So unless you physically hold in your hand gold or silver that you have purchased, you do not own it. It is not yours. You have a promissory note, promised to pay the bearer on demand one gold coin. But they don't have the gold coin. And when the money collapses and you want to try and get your money, as in gold, back or silver in these vaults, all these wonderful people. I mean, well, there was this a shyster that goes around selling stuff. He's a salesman, and he linked himself into many years ago into a gold bullion and silver bullion dealership, and people were able to purchase, gold and silver, a piece of a bar. I show you a picture of this big, shiny, lovely bar, and you own that little corner there. And everyone got the same email. And the salesman, the used car salesman with no hair, would then, sorry if you can hear outside noise, people are getting up and sort of starting to wake up, and kids. Um, so all these people went in and purchased their bullion and their silver. And the company said, we'll hold it for you, we'll look after it for you. Don't worry, it's safe, it's in the vault, we've definitely got it. Yeah, try getting it back. Try it. All of a sudden, all these costs come involved. I mean, you're having to pay monthly for them just to hold the silver for you or the gold for you. Aren't you lucky? Aren't you lucky? But then they charge you a smelting rate because they then decide that they've got to melt that big gold bar down and turn it into coins or whatever you want or however you want it. And they charge you a smelting rate. Then they charge you a delivery rate or whatever else it is. And so that by the time you've actually got your physical, if you're lucky enough to get your physical back, you've lost most of what you've invested. Interesting, isn't it? So for all of you that currently have your gold and silver in somebody's vault, I can pretty much guarantee that vault holds virtually nothing. Or I'd be very surprised if it actually held what they said it did. Because remember how many people actually ask for the delivery, the physical delivery. Same in crypto. I mean, I learned I learned this the other day. It's really interesting. Um, when you buy crypto through an exchange, obviously you've kind of got your, I'm not sure quite how it works. I could get this wrong, but the principle is correct. Okay. So you buy your crypto through an exchange, and that exchange holds your crypto as such, or is how you'd go in to then get your crypto back. So it's not like you've bought the crypto for the exchange and then you've taken it back to yourself physically. I think it still sits in the exchange as such, and it's held in your basket via a third party. Well, what they're doing is they're selling that crypto that you purchased onto somebody else, onto somebody else, onto somebody else. And so crypto, with all these exchanges, is just another form of fractional reserve banking. And what backs the cryptos in the first place? That's right, nothing at all. Fresh air. Not backed by gold, and it's not backed by silver. And if you say, yes, it is, well, go to the company in the ether and ask to walk around their vaults and see it, or ask them to send them a picture. I'm just saying, you know? So we're running out of time to purchase gold and silver, I believe. You know, none of this is financial advice, by the way. Again, disclaimer down below, disclaimer. So buy from if you wanted to, I mean, bail-ins with the banks, you know, like I said, with the piece of paper, let's go back to the piece of paper bit. You know, you've got your promissory note for your piece of gold and you want it, and the bank can't give it to you because they don't have it. And so what they're going to do is they're going to offer you your money, the monetary value of what you've got. So say you bought some gold at £1,000, it's now worth £2,500. You've made £1,500 profit, and you think, oh, great, I've made loads of money. Yeah, yeah, wonderful. But you don't actually have that in your hand, so you actually haven't made anything. You've just potentially made something. And so when you say, oh, I actually want the physical gold now, they say you can't have it because we don't have it. They'll give you the money, which is great. But that money's backed by nothing. And at the point in which you're asking for your gold, that money will be going into hyperinflation. And every single day you could be losing 10% of the purchasing power of virtually nothing. You know, in the 1920s, you could buy in America a gold coin, an ounce of gold for $20. Was it $3,400 now? The gold coin hasn't gone up in value. It's the amount of extra money being produced out of fresh air that has devalued that original $20 to $3,400. Does that make sense? I'll use the analogy of you've got a concentrated bit of cordial in the bottom of a glass. That's your gold. And then you start adding water into it, and to a point where when the taste goes and all you can really taste is like a basically flavored water. But the strength and that purity of what you originally had is gone. And that's how the money has been created. So the money being created out of fresh air has devalued or weakened the strength of its own money, the money itself. I mean, the Bank of England with the taxes, the Bank of England charges UK government 2% for every pound they produce for the government. So we have a 2% debasement of the value of money every single year. So in 10 years, you've lost 20% of the purchasing power of your pound or dollar or euro. So in other words, for you to maintain your living standard, just to maintain your purchasing power without any other inflationary stuff going on, you would have to have a 2% pay rise every year just to match the debasement of the money, the watering down of the money, the paper money. let alone the inflationary stuff that goes on out of it. You know, our money is worth nothing anymore, and that's why we're in trouble. Okay. Um, this was a really interesting one. I saw, and the Mineko 64 did it. I did share it on Telegram, on my Telegram channel, so please check it out. But he's talking about the US government is now going to be telling foreign countries how to spend the US debt that they hold, bonds and or excess dollars that they hold. So yeah, you heard that right. So the US is going to say to England that, oh, you have, I don't know, 500 million, a billion even in US dollars floating around in your coffers. You now have to invest in this company, that company, and you have to do this with it. And by the way, those are American companies, by the way, that you're investing in. That's an interesting concept. And it'd be interesting how that one plays out. So fundamentally, what I'm saying is that the money I lent you, or the money that you have purchased off me in debt bonds, as in, congratulations, you're getting an interest payment of 3% for holding my debt. I'm paying you. The money I'm paying you, I now will tell you how you can spend that money. And you'll spend it on whatever I tell you you'll have to spend it on whatever company and whatever investment system. Um, that sounds a bit like an overreach to me. So we have one nation, which is 4% of the world's population, or whatever it is. 4% of, I know the central, I say it's 4% of the world population, it's probably more than that, but um, I've seen 4% banded around. So we'll just take that as a 4%. So 4% of the world controls the the monetary system that every country in the world has to use. Okay. So if you take that 4% is now going to be telling the world how to spend that money as well. Now, the problem I have, and I'm looking over this as that's absolutely fine in principle, but we all know who runs the banking system. We all know who fundamentally runs every single government in the world. And we know that prime ministers and presidents are just mouthpieces for their masters generally. And when they go against something, they're in trouble. We have a very interesting situation as well in Venezuela at the moment, where the US government has placed a £50 million bounty on the head of the duly elected president of Venezuela. Last time that happened was with Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. Hmm. You know, but we've got a new regime in now. It's different. Remember, it's different now. Now, Venezuela has huge oil reserves, huge oil reserves. And whatever you want to be thinking about in the 3D realm currently, this is 3D realm stuff we're talking about. Oil and the pretend nature of the electric car and all that debacle is never going to happen because oil is too powerful. And oil is the monetary system of the cabal and the dark states. And so they're never really going to go all electric and cut oil and petrol cars out. That was never ever going to happen. It was just a ruse to see how many people they could get to play the game again. Bit of fun. The cat playing with the mouse, giving it a bit of a bat. Now, Venezuela is looking at joining the BRICS nations, and the BRICS nations is very important. This is very, very important. BRICS, please look it up. BRICS nations are going to be the new world power in what they're producing and who they deal with. And it just so happens that the Western countries are not going to be dealt with by BRICS. You know, the G7 or G8, whatever it is, countries, they're not part of the BRICS. And we've got the loony lefts controlling, or have been controlling fundamentally, the complete breakdown and takedown of the Western civilization, while the BRICS nations have been quietly working together, creating intertradable systems, currency of that interchangeable system, and making sure that they have all the raw materials that they need, including food. They're self-sufficient, a block. Now Venezuela, if Venezuela joins BRICS, which they're I think trying to do now, what that gives BRICS nations as a whole, as a collective, is 60% of the world's oil production. The BRICS nations already control most of the gold. They control most of the silver in the world. Silver is very, very important, as you well know, or should know. The opportunity of a generation currently to purchase silver. So I'm told, not financial advice. There's less silver in this realm than there is gold because it's been used. But when you have the BRICS nations with Venezuela, should that happen, controlling 60% of the world's oil, where does that leave the Western countries anymore? Fragile system, remember? We're talking about the fragile system. It's all coming down in real terms. So this is why we have a government insisting and telling other countries how they can spend their money, and essentially putting a price on the duly elected prime minister or president, whichever it is, it doesn't matter, for regime change to benefit that country. It's been going on for years, but I thought we were in a different realm now. Different things were, you know, things were changing. But the thing is, when you look at the history, you know that that country, my country, the UK, are all controlled, we're all taken over, and are fully controlled by a very, very small country, a group of individuals, a mafia, in fact, who control every aspect of our lives, or did, because that's changing. Remember the fragile system. A spider's web is great, it's very strong, but a spider's web can still be broken. When you take key points out of it, it'll fail. The whole thing will fail. That's where we are at the moment. That's where we are at the moment. So, yeah, I think that's kind of it. Let me just look at my notes. Oh yeah, yeah. The other thing was, which I thought was quite interesting, with the money is the interest. So American debt. This is quite a good one for you American taxpayers, because I know we all love paying tax. It's the same for the UK, it's the same everywhere, but this is a very good analogy. This works everywhere, by the way. Every single country that you're paying tax on, the tax doesn't go to the running of your country for your government. No, 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 no. It goes to pay the debt of the mismanagement and spending of that government to the bankers who put the country in debt in the first place by their shenanigans. So what we have is when a country like China holds debt bonds in the US dollar for American debt bonds, there's an interest to be paid. Now, at one point, China had 3 trillion in American debt. I think they only now have about 750, 800, yeah, 750 to 800 billion in debt now. But at the point in which they had 3 trillion in debt held there, they would have been getting probably 2, 3% interest. So your American tax dollars, same in England, our pounds, same in Europe, makes no difference, would have been going to China, and the Chinese government were paying that and using that money for infrastructure because they weren't bombing anybody, they weren't blowing anybody up, they weren't fighting anybody. So they were using American tax dollars from the debt that they had held to improve their own country, their own military, and whatever else they wanted to do. And it didn't cost the Chinese anything to do it because they were holding the debt bonds, and the American public paid for China's own growth, just like we did in the UK and everybody else. Think about that one. And on that, I shall leave it. But the fragile system, it really is a fragile system. Have no fear. Have no fear. It's going to come down, but it's going to come down very quickly because the emperor has no clothes anymore, and we're going to see it. We're in it now. 100% are we in it. So many, you know, just before I go, it was just me and a few others potentially saying, we're in the storm, we're in the storm, this is the portal coming up. We called this. I don't know if we're right still. I think we are. I'm certain we are. And the reason why I'm certain we are is because we're seeing it across multiple channels now. They're all saying it in different ways or in the same way. But from what I'm seeing and being shown by the algorithms on YouTube and the few people I follow, and it's not many, I'm seeing that kind of rhetoric. What are you seeing? I only have a limited thing. Are the people that you follow, beautiful Femi, are they saying the same thing, that we're in the storm now and that things are about to change and it's about to get rocky in a good way and we're coming through this? It's going to be the Great Awakening. Nothing can stop it. All this stuff. Is this what you're hearing? Because I'd be fascinated to hear in the comments what you're feeling and seeing for this movement. Because remember, it's a positivity of the change of the manifestation that we're doing, and we've got this. We really do. Well, with that, I babbled on far too long. Love, light, and blessings, everybody, and I shall catch you later. Bye bye.